Hello everyone, and welcome back to the animation tutorial. This is part 1, and today, in this video, we're going to be going into detail a little bit more with animation. I'm going to be showing a sample of an animation, and basically explaining the keyframing process in detail. Like, in full-on detail. So, with that getting started, let's begin. Now, as explained before, I'm going to be using Flip-A-Clip for this tutorial because Flip-A-Clip's got the most simplest interface to work with. It's also free to get, so you can actually practice with it before actually purchasing it. I do highly recommend it to purchase the full version too. It's only $7 Canadian last I checked, which is really awesome for an introductory program like this, and it has so much potential to make it into better animations and whatnot. But it's the best program to start off. That's all I can say. But with that being out of the way about praising Flip-A-Clip, let's begin. So, when I animate, I usually have kind of an idea of what I'm going to do and what the characters are going to do. For some of you people, you may need what's called a storyboard to help you guide. For me, I don't usually storyboard my animations, but I do kind of like an animatic style storyboard. So basically, let's just say here, I'm going to draw sands because everyone can relate with sands at some degree, right? I'll just pop here. So, I'm going to do sands doing a head turn. And that's too thick of a line. I like using the pencil tool for Flip-A-Clip because it gives really good, nice, smooth lines for sketching. So basically, if I'm going to do a sands doing a head turn, I got a circle, right? And I'm going to do the facial features. I don't usually do the facial features until, like, the nose and the mouth until I have a kind of a head made out. So I'm going to draw his nose in. I'm going to do it, like, really classic instead of my style. Because with this little simple animation, I'm going to describe the keyframing process with this. So I've got sands. He's looking really jolly today. He must have had a lot of ketchup. So we got his face. We got what's called now our first extreme, our beginning frame. Now I think I'll draw the body too because I think a simple head turn just won't really cut it. So I'm going to draw him chest up. Okay, hold up, I've just got to take care of that real quick. I don't know why I decided that logging into Discord was a good idea during my whole recording process, so I apologize. But here we go. So we're going to draw Sans' body. Now I usually do what's called like kind of amateur animation, but I always have the head as the most defined thing because it helps me keep the shape of it. But I don't usually over-define the character. I'm going to do him with his traditional hands and his pocket thing. So now we got that. And then I'm going to do what's called the next extreme. So, with the handy little thing called onion skinning, I'm going to make his head turn this way. Now, what is onion skinning? It's basically where it's just showing the previous or the next frame, depending if you've got a frame before and after. It'll show those frames kind of at a lower opacity, and you can decide if it's in the red and green, which the onion skin will typically do, or if it's just going to be a lighter color of the sketch. In this case, it's red. Red usually indicates your previous frame, green indicates your forward frame, as you will see once I do my other extreme here. So I'm going to go over that, and I'm going to turn his head all the way to the right side. Now I usually do it over top of the head, even if I'm moving the head quite a bit from the original position, I still trace the original position head portion mostly the same. And then I'm going to do his mouth. The sideways sands are always tricky to do. We're going to have him turn this way. Now this animation's not going to be perfect by any means, but it'll get the idea across. So we're going to have him still having his hands in his pockets. We're not going to make him move a lot. It's just lazy old Sans. So now, we have our two extremes. We're having the one where Sans is looking at us, and where Sans is turned away from us. So now, here's where we start doing in-betweening. We go here, and we look to see how the frames align. So as you can see here, this is what I explained earlier. The green frame is your your frame ahead of the in-between. The red one's the one behind the in-between. So we're going to turn his head kind of in that in-between motion. Now, depending on your placement will affect how the head kind of turns a bit. So we're going to go and do it about the halfway point, which is about here. And then we're going to try to keep his eyes in a similar pose. I always have trouble with this, so if it doesn't look right, my apologies. And then I'm going to have his eyes move. I'm not going to do smear frames. I'll explain that in another part of the tutorial. And then, of course, we're going to have his jaw kind of move a bit. And we're going to move his body a little. I'm going to also adjust his body a little bit because his body looks like it's kind of moving a bit funky. I find that I always have to kind of reposition. So now we got our in-between. Oh, I forgot to put his arms in there. Sometimes I don't animate all these details because I know kind of how I'm going to sketch them, but other times I do. Most times I do. There's also going to be a little foreshortening there. So now we got an in-between between our two extremes. As you can see, that looks pretty smooth, but it's quite fast. Keep in mind this is also at 12 frames a second. So I want him to have like it going fast, but then easing in to the end motion. Now easing in is just basically where you have the animation kind of, as it says, ease in. It just slowly gets into that final pose. So we're going to put an in-between, between this in-between and the final, here. So now, I'm going to do it where it's about here. Oh. I am not doing the nose quite the same. His nose is transforming. Okay, there we go. Now, as the character turns, we also have to keep in mind some things start to kind of shorten a bit. So we'll do that again. And we're going to have his body also do the same thing. We're going to have it ease in. You don't have to have the body go in at the same motion as the head. You can have where the head or the body kind of moves before the head a bit or a little late. It does give a bit more character. Just keep in mind it doesn't look too unnatural, like his neck's going and doing some sort of exorcism of Emily Rose kind of crap. Okay, unless you want that, then by all means. So now, once we play this, the animation starts to slow down as the end between it. It's smoother, but it also slowed down. Now, you can compensate by this by increasing your frame rate. So let's bring it up. I'm going to bring it to 15. And then, once you do your frame rate, it's still fast, but it's still smooth. So that's how you can kind of compensate when you slow down your animation, you can kind of compensate by increasing your frame rate. But note that you need to be mindful about your pacing throughout the rest of it too. So I'm going to go back to 12 frames per second for a moment. And I'm going to slow him down a little bit more into that turn. So I'm going to add another frame. Oops, I don't want to copy that. I'm going to add another frame in there. Oh, the snow was a bit too big. Also need to make note of the head position. I don't want to go past that point. Here I'm going to ease his shoulder in. Now notice I'm not making this perfect because I'm only trying to explain the concept of motion as it applies to frame rate and your in-betweens. So now, we got Sans easing in. Now I want him to hold that pose instead of just looping like that, so I will copy and paste these frames. And now, we have a nice smooth motion going into it. Don't mind that. So that's how keyframing works. Now, as I said before, if I want to make that a little bit faster, I would just go change my frame rate. Now let's see what happens when I put it to my fast frame rate, my normal frame rate I use. It looks super smooth, but it's fast, so I would need to add even more frames yet to smooth that out. But as you can see, it looks super smooth. Now if I dial it down, let's go halfway point. Let's go about, well, I guess a little less than that. Let's go 16. Now, it still looks pretty smooth, I'd say. And we got where he's moving fast and then he eases into that. So there's how to keyframe. I hope that this part of the tutorial was very helpful. Like I said in the past one, if there was anything I missed, or if there's any questions that were not answered by this tutorial, feel free to leave them down in the comments below. I will be going over lip syncing and basically, I guess, frame-by-frame motion in the next tutorial. So thank you, and we will see you in part 3.